Yes, Dhiren sir, you can start.
So Manali, should we wait for 1 or 2 minutes because people are joining, or what we have to start now?
So we can start. They can keep joining. No problem with that, sir. Because it will take like 5 minutes or so to begin with his talk, with the introduction and all. Yes, sir. Please start, Dhiren sir.
So welcome to international webinar on languages of Northeast India. Uh, Good afternoon, all of you. So we have three presentation. One is plenary talk will be given by Professor Stephen Murray, and we have another two presenters, Dr. Kaitlabo Daimai and Amir Sadata. So it's my pleasure to introduce Professor Stephen Murray, but in fact it is not a new face with us. Professor Stephen Murray is a well-known linguist and faculty of the Department of Languages and Linguistics, La Trobe University, Melbourne. And he has done his excellent research work on Thai languages of Assam and awarded his PhD degree in Monash University in the year 2002. And along with his teaching career, he received 4 consecutive research fellowships at La Trobe University. He also received many grants and scholarships. And Professor Murray is known by his quality publication in the form of books. Some of his notable books are The Thai Languages of Assam in 2005, Turung, a variety of Singpho language spoken in Assam in 2010, The Mathai Group of Languages in 2011, and Indigenous Songs of Victoria is in press now. And interestingly, he has written Thai Ahom, Thai Aiton Primer in the year 1999 and Thai Fakir Primer in the year 2000. And he also edited many books, which includes Nails Volume 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, etc. It's a very long, long list of publications, works, and etc. And he has chaired many, committees, in different institutions, different organizations, and besides, he also supervised many PhD scholars. And I'm really feel proud of Professor Stephen Murray. He is with us today, and he will be speaking on documentation of traditional songs. And I'm just inviting Professor Stephen Murray. Sir, over to you, sir. Please.
Thank you very much for that introduction. Excuse me, I've got a slight, I may need time to have just a little bit of water, just keep speaking. So let me share the screen and you can all confirm that you are able to see it, hopefully. And I will also, sorry, I will also hide the video panel. So I'm going to, I actually prepared a talk with a slightly different name, but in fact, the talk that we'll be having today can be related probably to any part of Northeast India. I suppose I've been researching the endangered songs and musics. So this means not just songs, but to some extent instrumental music, though I won't speak much about that. But it is a related question in this Patkai Range area. But actually we can extend this, I think, almost throughout the whole of the Northeast, that we have endangered songs all over the place. So I wanted to make the point that these traditions are so easily lost. So when I first started researching the languages of Northeast India, the first village that I visited was at Banlung or Borpata, a Tayaiton village in Karbi Anglong. And one of the first people that I met there on that very first day, which was in October 1996, will be coming up 25 years shortly, the auntie of my host, Jausang E Palung. Not on that day, but later, she sang some songs for me. And she died more than 10 years ago, and with her, the skill of singing some of these songs died too. So I wanted to give you an example of her song, which comes with video. And this was a song to be sung while pounding rice, while doing that job which so many, particularly women, used to have to do, removing the husk of rice. Let's listen to it. Someone will call out if the sound is not good, but I think it'll be okay. You can hear me talking with her a little bit before she starts singing properly. Oh, hold on. Where did the song go?
Nice ah. No, nah, long big sang ale cái chơi pin.
Okay, tamo, nung
Cái phù phơ khăn rè rè nằm tàu sai túc băng đầu nồng bẹc xác phải chơi pi xôi xôi xin câu lòn cò hờ lòn ra phà câu lòn cò hờ lòn ra xôi xôi này.
Actually, I feel a little sad watching that because this dear old lady was very close in age to my own grandmother. And actually, yesterday was the anniversary of my grandmother's birth 110 years ago. So I was remembering her. And now seeing Ba'am sing and her wonderful smile, I miss her very much. So I was able to record her singing a small number of fairly short songs. But actually there really isn't anybody alive today in the Aiton village who knows the things that she knew. This, after we sat and I recorded this, she explained to me the meaning, and it is similar actually to a song that was explained by other Aiton people and certainly people in the Thai Pake village. Pake is somewhat similar to Aiton as a lullaby rather than a rice pounding song, but she said this is to be sung while pounding the rice. I think I'll mention rice pounding a little bit later again, but this was an example of a community where songs had almost completely ceased to be used. There are still some, and of course there are modern songs, but I'm talking about the traditional songs. This is the only rice pounding song in Thai Aiton that I was able to find. Doesn't mean there are not others, but I did search and visited every Aiton village. So a few months ago, I was pointed to this Facebook post that had reference to this article in India about the forgotten Manipur tribe who has just one member left who knows its folk songs and its musical instruments. And I thought, well, that's true not just of this tribe, it's true of so many. And we need to do something about at least recording this knowledge before it's lost. So we need to make the point that even if a language is strong, things like songs and music may be very endangered. They may have a very endangered vitality. So many languages, for a start, only have a small number of mother tongue speakers, those who use it as their first language. Daiton, perhaps 1,500, 2,000, something like that. It is being learned by children. It's not a language in severe danger. But 1,500 is a small number, 1,500. And when you have a language with a small number, the chances that you will have people who are really working to preserve songs is even less. People have other interests. And children are not learning these songs, and they don't hear them as much as they would have. So why don't they hear them? Well, one of the reasons is they're often away at residential schools. And I think, as we all know, one of the biggest threats to language diversity in India is the policies of residential schools if they don't encourage children to speak their mother tongues. But in former times, singing and storytelling was a feature of family life. It's what you did in the evenings. No TV, no radio, no such things, no DVDs, whatever. But now many people prefer to watch TV or DVDs, even when the children are home. So when the children come home in their holidays, they still don't hear the songs. And that's true of stories as well. And there's a third reason why songs are endangered in some communities, is that they're associated, well, they're regarded as being antiquated. Younger people don't want to listen to them. And they're associated with antique practices like rice pounding, which most people have a machine to do now, or associated with old religion, and people have converted to a new one. So faced with this potential loss of so much, what can we do? So the first stage is to record the songs. Video is better than audio, but sound recording is better than no recording. If you have a good video camera, use it. But even if you don't, if one of the elders in one of your villages is singing a song, record it on your mobile phone. It's better than nothing. Of course, we then have to get it archived so that that recording is not lost, but at least record it. Because actually the mobile phone, the video you get from a mobile phone is better than generations of video cameras that we had for most of the last century. If you have a nice sound recorder that your linguistics department provides, use it. But if you don't, use anything. Any recording is better than no recording. Okay, so here's a second example. And this again is from the Tayaiton. This is from the late Sacham, one of my very dearest friends there. And just listen to it for a while, because this talks about the next stage. So let's listen to him.
Hale 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 có khối jaga lopio chat bung kham jaga kham teruk tapi ko ta utan kek toi pho padama san ko jaga kong pen phu ko dong pung chat im ko ngau kham lin akasa chap kai mang sa khau thun ke how.
So you would have noticed in listening to that recording that most of the words are single syllables, da, 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 da. But then you had the word patama, which you would recognize, the word for first. That's a borrowed word from Pali Sanskrit, which they pronounce simply as patama. But the native Thai words are simply spoken as monosyllables. But before we can even think about making an analysis of the song, we first have to name the recording file. So you record something on your mobile phone, it gives it a name, and that name won't make any sense later on. So there are two features of the names that should be considered. It should be unique, so that it can't be confused with another recording. So simply calling this Sacham song wouldn't be a good idea, as he might sing several songs, and there could be several people called Sacham. And some researchers feel it's helpful to put information about the recording into the file name. So, and every recording device will make a file name of its own, which you need to change. So, for example, my current video camera creates names like 780_0014_01.mp4. Doesn't make any sense at all, but it is a unique name to some extent. Much better to name it something else. So I named it like this, which was STM02 2004-0404-04 Sacham songs. What does that mean? Well, STM was the code for Stephen D. Morey, that's me. 02 for the second language that I recorded information about, Dayaiton. And to understand this code, someone would need to know my system. And that's a problem, because the information about what my system is might get forgotten. 2004 was the date of the recording. Maybe you only need to put the year, but if you make as many recordings as I do, the month and the day helps to distinguish them. Then the 04 means it's the fourth video made on that day. So if Sajam then went on to sing another song on the next video recording, it might be SDM 02 2004 0404-05 Sajam songs, etc. And that's another unique name. It's very unlikely that anyone else in the world will ever name a file in this way, because firstly, nobody's going to go back and make any more recordings on the 4th of April 2004. That's a date which is long past. And even if they did for some reason use that date, they wouldn't be using the name of Sajam, etc. So it's likely to be unique. And if I write metadata about it, we'll talk about that shortly, then the two will get connected. Sajam is the name of the speaker, and songs is a summary of the content of the recording. In more recent recordings after 2012, I changed SDM02 and put in the ISO language code AIO. But ISO language codes are not without difficulties either, which I'll mention later. But between the date of this recording on the 4th of April 2004 and the day I started preparing this lecture, the 20th of March 2021, I didn't do anything more with the recording except put it in an archive and sort of make a cut copy from the original cassette. I've got it backed up. Actually, it isn't archived yet. I've got it backed up on hard drives and at the university server, but I never asked Sajam to explain it. But when I was listening to it, I thought, this is a bit familiar. So I checked against a recording that Nobin Shampalung made, and this was transcribed and partly translated. Now, I wanted to show you, this is one of the thousands of pages of half-completed work that I have. If I had spent my entire career studying Thai languages, by now I would have fixed this. But of course, I went on and studied other languages, as you know. And all I have here is the Thai text and some glossing, not for every word, and one or two examples of a phonemic transcription. But you see the word for joy has this very curious BYQ1. And the reason for that is that this is an old phonetic font that goes back 20 years. Before we had Unicode, before we had keyboards, I made a special phonetic font so that I could use it, and I put the OR symbol, that open O, on the letter Q. But as you can see, this is exactly the same song. I've checked it, but as you can see, my transcription is complete, the translation is complete, but the glossing, the word-by-word glossing, is not. But there are some spelling mistakes, so I've written announce instead of announce and so on. One day, I hope I'll have time to go back to this and make it complete. So that's an example of a song for which I have got some metadata, but I'm going to talk about metadata in a minute, and a partial translation. But I want to show you one where we went further. So this is the late Soipo Pansa. The last time I played his recording, he died, I think 2 years back, but Banwang can correct that. His daughter was one of the people in the audience, and she was quite emotional to see him singing. He was brought down to the Kiati Hotel in Dibrugarh, which some of you will know, by Banwang Losu, who is in the audience today, so that he could sing for me. And here he is singing. So let's listen, just a small extract. Then, ready?
Apio nang mat kok sa sava kai nong e cham phang nga sa kam da khu di nga nga he u e chu le hang lang dai u he nga kam khau to hang dong dai nga he van e chak le hang sun dai. Anyway, we might leave it there.
Ready? You will have noticed that that was a much better quality recording than the one I made of Ba'am many years earlier, because cameras have improved. You will have also noticed the occasional banging noise in the background. That's because I've never stayed in a hotel in India that isn't being rebuilt in some way, or if it isn't being rebuilt, the building next door is. So there's always some noise going on. And I think, as Banwang will remember, that we shifted to one of our friends' Ailot Hailong's house in Dibrugarh to record the later songs. So, in making this recording, we need to collect some metadata, information about the recording. That's who is on it. Where was it done? When was it done? And how was it done? How would be what recording device did you use and maybe what microphones? And most importantly, what? So, what might include the name of the song. It might include a transcription of the words sung. It might include a translation. It might include a word-by-word gloss. It might include other contextual information. The more you collect, the better it is, because the problem with songs is that song language is often not everyday language. And even if people can speak the everyday language, they can't speak the song language. They don't know what it means. So I named the file. Originally, I wanted to call it Wancho 2007-0118, so 18th of January 2017, 01, first recording of that date. SM, that's my initials for the person making the recording. JVC, the initials of the machine. Soipo's name and what kind of song it was. But I've decided to archive these at the Paradisec archive, and to do that, I had to reduce the file name to no more than 30. And so there was just no space to include Soipo's name because I wanted to have the language, the date, and a serial number for which recording it was on the day, because there was then going to be underscore 02, underscore 03, underscore 04, because as Banwang will remember, we recorded 6 or 7 songs that day. And the Wancho consultants didn't want the ISO language code ISO 6393 NNP to be used, because NNP doesn't mean anything to the Wancho speakers, although it is a somewhat internationally recognized code. We could perhaps at some point have a discussion about these language codes. I think this would be a very useful thing to talk about, but not for today, so that's why we have spelt out Wancho there. And this is what the metadata looks like. So this is an extract from the Paradisec database. So on the left-hand side, under item identifier, you have the name of the recording. Then there's a title. It's a Wancho children's song. Then I have a description. Now, this is the what. It could have been more than this, but this is what I wrote. It's a children's song for teaching language to children. It's an old traditional song. Its origin is unknown. He learned it. That means soipo. This could be better expressed from old people. The song does not have a title. It is in the form of discussion between grandmother and grandchildren. It was also recorded as a sound recording. Then we have the content language, Wancho. The subject language, that's the language that is being talked about. Because sometimes you can have a recording which is in one language but talking about another language. Then the country, India, the date, and then because the metadata that I'm collecting is too long for one slide, I cut it in half and put the other side down here. So the origination date is at the end of one line and the beginning of the other. The region is Dibrugarh. Original meaning, its recordings. It's what we call primary data, which is that it is secondary data would be a transcription of the song. Primary data is the song itself. And then you have the people involved in the recording. The consultant, Soipo Pansa, the researcher, Stephen Mori, and second researcher, Banwang Losu. And so there were other people present there, but those were the ones who were actually involved in the recording. And that's enough metadata to get something archived, but it isn't going to help people interpret this song in 100 years' time. We had a bit of help from Soipo's own book, where he had written the song in a sort of unofficial Roman orthography. And ideally, when you photograph books, you'd have them so that they are flat. You can see that this one isn't flat. And maybe with a ruler and a colour chart, the way I did the Taya Home manuscripts that some of you might have seen. But this book, we were preserving it for its content rather than for it as an object, but still, it would be better to make a better picture of this. Note the drawing of a sickle. We're going to come back to that. So, we did a transcription and translation, and the transcription is in Banwang's Wancho script, the wonderful Wancho script which has been created for this language, but it's also in a sort of simplified Roman script that doesn't mark tones. In the Wancho script, these little marks on the top are tone marks. So this is the translation, and this is really valuable, but it still doesn't tell you everything you need to know. Because suppose we look at the first line, Api yo nang matkok sa sapakai. Oh, grandmother, please give me your small sickle. Here are some questions. How can you answer these questions from that? So the first question is, what is the word for sickle? Does anyone have any idea what is the word for sickle? Secondly, is small sickle a single word or is it two? Because you could have a situation where the small sickle has its own word. Thirdly, how does the language convey please? Is there a word for please? How is it done? And secondly, which is the word for me? Because we have translated it, please give me your small sickle. English requires there to be an object stated. So what is the answer to this? Well, to get this information, we need a word-by-word glossing. You are linguists, so you know this. So what's the word for sickle? The answer is matkok. Is a small sickle a single word or two? Well, the answer here is two, because you have matkok sa, sickle small. It might not have been that way. How does the language convey please? And Bunwang's in the room and he may want to correct me, but at least in terms of understanding why these are important, why it's important to do this, it's the prefix "s" that gives the politeness. And then which is the word for me? Well, there is no word for me in the song. But there's an imperative marker kai, which implies motion towards the speaker. Now, since this song is being sung by a single person in the voice of speaking, a grandchild speaking to grandmother, then it is appropriate in English to put please give me your small sickle. Actually, literally, it is please give towards your small sickle, towards the speaker. There is no word for me. And here it's important to remember that the languages of Northeast India and a language like English sometimes differ in the things that they must include and that they need not include. So English must have an object in a sentence like this, but other languages do not need to. And that's one of the interesting differences. Okay, so I wanted to give you an example of past recordings for which we can't now collect complete information. So this was a cassette which I was shown in about 2005, give or take, by the late Kyangla, the Gambara of Kumchai Kong village in Assam, Singpo village. Quality is not that great, as you'll hear. He told me that the singer of the cassette was the late Gaja Nong Bu of Nampai, and the song was accompanied by a doro, or traditional fiddle. But we can't really make out the words. But according to Mpangumgai, one of the elder women of the Singpo community, who I was very pleased to find in January, is still as well and looks as young as ever. And I went and spent about 1 hour sitting with her at Ntem village. So delighted to see her still well, still living in one of the poorest houses that I know. According to her, it would have been sung at a wedding. This recording demonstrates the use of a musical instrument which is no longer played. And as far as I know, this is the only recording of the use of the doro in the Singpo area. Have a bit of a listen to it. move on, just consider for a moment what it would be like if your community had only a song of that quality, of a recording of that quality remaining for all the songs of your community. You can't hear the words properly. It's interrupted. The sound is very poor. We need to and want to do better than that. So one method of recording the meaning of the song is to record the song and then play it straight back to the speaker and ask the speaker to explain it. Or even after it's been sung, immediately say, now tell us what the song is about. Or better than that, you can find a way to play it back in small sections, line by line, and ask the speaker to explain the meaning of each line, or maybe two meanings at a time. The speaker, the singer, may not, probably will not be able to give you word by word glossing, but they can explain the overall meaning of the whole line, and that will be better than nothing. So I wanted here to give you the example of Neme's Vihu song. So she is a lady of the Chamchang sub-tribe of the Tangsa. She lives near to Karsang in Changlang district. And according to the community there were two types of traditional singers, those who learn the song from someone else, the Pak Dong, and those who learn it through inspiration, through dreams or whatever. And she is the last remaining Kundong, the one who learns it from inspiration. So we went to meet her in December 2014. She sang the song, but she couldn't explain its meaning. I'll just let you listen to a moment of it.
Lo te ke le san bang long jong ja na ha bai le hom jam chiro pana.
Okay, since I'm going to run out of time if I don't move on, because I need to make the points that I'm going to make. So she couldn't sit with us and explain it. It was late in the afternoon when we got there, and so the work was done in January 2019 across the border in Myanmar with Ujin Manwangpi, who is a speaker of the same variety, explaining his understanding of the meaning. Here's an important point. You can have the same song which two different singers will explain the meaning somewhat differently. That, I think, would be an interesting topic to raise at another time. Here's a small sample of him discussing the meaning of one line, which takes just 4 seconds to sing, but a lot longer to Now, I won't play the whole thing because it goes on for too long. That's my PhD student, Vong Tsushi, in Burma, asking him questions in Burmese, which is why he couldn't understand it, about the meaning of the song. And eventually, we worked out that this transcription was more or less correct. It took 1.5 minutes for him to explain it. It took even longer for us to then write it down and note down the meanings of the particular words. And so you can expect to spend at least an hour translating 1 minute of text, maybe longer. But the method is good because we will come to know the meaning of every word. And how you would play it back, you could open it in a program like Audacity, and there are multiple programs that will do this, but something that shows the waveform, and then you can select a section and play that back and record the playing back and the person explaining the meaning. That's what we had done in that recording you just listened to. Notice that you can see what the song lines look like, these very thick waveforms and quite long, gradually decreasing. And then at around 30 seconds, there's a bit of talking, and that looks very different. Okay, I don't have a chance to replay it. I just wanted to show that the part shown in red there is an example of what you could replay, but record as you are replaying it. What is that? You record the replaying and the discussion, but you need a computer to do that. I guess you could do this with 2 mobile phones. And one of the things I was recently doing was investigating a program that had been created in Australia for doing this, but I'm still not quite skilled enough to do it. And so maybe in a couple of months' time, I could come back here if I've worked out how to operate that program called Aikuma and take you through how to do it. So what kind of knowledge do traditional songs contain? Why bother to record them? Well, they're important for a number of reasons. They may contain stories of history, migration, creation of modern villages and communities. They may contain information about traditional cultural practices no longer in use. The rice pounding song is an example of a song that relates to a practice no longer in use, although it's not about rice pounding. They may contain archaic language that isn't used anymore and helps us to understand the history of language and speakers. And they may be culturally important for communities in terms of their self-identity. They may want to continue them even after their original purpose is no longer present. So this is an example of the rice pounding songs of the Thai, Pake, all the Thai communities in the Singapore. In Singapore, they call it Mampu Soiwa, and I have recorded a few of those. The Pake people would call it Soyoi. And that's because the words that you sing that mean pound, 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 Soyoi, Soyoi. But if you just look at the meaning of this, the poor woman must prepare the meal only rising from it when the sun reaches its height. Actually, when they used to sing these songs, the women would be able to complain about their lot in the world. They couldn't speak it directly in some cases, but they could sing about it. And all around the world, songs are often used, particularly by the less privileged members of the community, to sing about the more powerful people, things that they can't say. Okay, here's a historical photo of a lady from the Singapore community using one of these. Don't have any... this lady died long before I visited the village from where I got this photo, and you can see how badly damaged the photo is. This is another thing that needs documentation, are all the photos of people's families. And this is Inyanket, the Thai Pake lady, demonstrating what it would have sounded like back in the days when they still did the pounding.
Xoay voi, xoay voi, xoay ơi, mày cầm cô ơi, sắc xuân tiền à, xoay voi, xoay voi, xoay ơi.
Now you can already hear from that the song has a very clear rhythm, because when you do this pounding, you do it in a rhythmic way, not too quickly, because if you're going to do it for an hour, you've got to do it slowly. So, but most of the people in those villages now have machines to do this for them. So the song is no longer needed for its original purpose, but versions of it are now being performed at community festivals such as New Year Festival and welcoming honoured guests. Similarly, the Tang Savihu song, once sung in houses on the day of sacrifice for the bounteous blessings of the harvest, is now sung at modern community festivals. Unfortunately, in Northeast India, we have very few, at least in the areas where I research, we have very few recordings of traditional songs prior to the late 1990s. Some of you who are my Facebook friends might have seen a post I put up about some Naga resources in England, where they do have recordings of songs from the 1940s, 1950s, 1960s. But mostly in the area that I'm researching, we don't. The late Dr. Banchop visited Northeast India from 1954, and she did record songs of the Thai community, but amongst the Tangsa and the Singpo, it seems not. So that's the end of my talk. I hope I haven't gone on too long, perhaps a tiny bit, but then we did start late. So I'll stop the sharing, and perhaps we can have 5 or so minutes for discussion.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Murray. Due to globalization, children of indigenous languages or the endangered language speakers are no longer to learn folk songs, but folk rhymes, folk dance, etc. So Professor Murray addressed how to document those folk songs systematically in his talk. So without wasting time, what I'm saying is that I'm just requesting the audience, because Professor Murray has many more engagement today, so we have to leave him. So I'm just what to say. The paper is open for discussion. I have handed over to the audience. Please, if you have any query, if you have any comments, you please give your comments and query about questions. Please.
You can also
Dhiren
write.
sir, can I?
Yep.
Yeah, yes, sure, Manoj.
I was I was very curious, and I found it very interesting when the rice pounding song was sung. That woman was singing as in soyo soyo, and even in Dimasa the rice pounding song starts with soy golo soy, and I was wondering what is the meaning of that. And it could be that at one point of time in the 10th 11th century, when there was Dimapur kingdom, and at that time when there was Ahom invasion, and when the Thai people came across with the Dimasas and the eastern group of the Kacharis. It could be that the song might have been created um, at that point of time, because we still use it. And when I asked elderly women what is the meaning, and they're not able to decipher it for me, so I just left it as some idiophones. So this folk songs actually not only help in documenting for language documentation and revitalization, but I think it also helps in ethno history, knowing the ethno history, and also about the migration and all that thing as well.
So that's an amazingly interesting question, and it raises a number of interesting points. So in the Thai Pake dictionary, the word soy is defined as to pound rice. Well, it says for fun, but I'm not sure why the for fun is added there. But the Singpos, or the Singpos who speak a very different language also use this soy. So the first thing that occurs to me is that one of the things we could do is make a study of song genres across multiple languages. So the rice pounding song would be a really good one to do, because many cultures have them, and see what similarities and differences there are. So you've pointed to a similarity that is definitely worth following up. I had assumed that the word soy actually was just an everyday language word, but perhaps it isn't. Perhaps it's acquired this meaning because it's in the song, and it's actually just a generic word for this type of song used in multiple communities. And so I guess this is certainly an example of how song language can give us information that may be helpful for understanding the history of languages. Now, I've noticed that there's a question from Charingna Widinibu. Like human language systems, folk songs also change through time. Absolutely. For instance, oral transmission is compressed time frame by involving singers who heard and replicated short musical excerpts and then would teach a colleague who in turn passed it on to another participant. In this way, so society also transmits folk songs. So do we need to examine folk song through gradual diachronic shifts? Well, that would be a really interesting thing to do, except that we don't have, in most cases, examples of recordings that we can compare. In the Thai Pake, the one particular type of song, the Kekyang song, there was a recorded version of it. There was a song that was written to honor the creation of the Thai Pake primer, and it was written about, it includes the story of me coming to India and meeting the people and deciding to make the book and so on. And there's a particular feature of that song is the rhyming system, but the rhyming system in that song only uses tone 1 and tone 2 out of the 6 available tones. Whereas the earlier one that was recorded by Dr. Bunchop in the 1970s, uses more of the tones. So maybe that is one of the changes that we can see as a result of having recordings from the 1970s and recordings from the 2000s. But for most of the songs of Northeast India, this kind of diachronic study, comparing the way they used to be with the way they are now, isn't going to be possible. There are certainly many people who would tell stories along the lines of There used to be singers who could sing all night, but I've never met one who can these days. And so maybe that's another difference, that in olden times people would sing for longer. But I think that if you are lucky enough, and in some of the Naga areas, some of those recordings that were linked on that Facebook post I put up yesterday, there might be old versions of songs that can be used for comparative purposes, and I fancy there has been a little bit written about this somewhere. In general, however, unless you have old recordings, it will be difficult to compare them. And of course, we're also talking about the language of the songs and the music. Another thing I could have talked about if I'd had time was the way in which the music itself can convey meaning. But that will be a talk for another day.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Manali and Dr. Vijayanabu for the question, and thank you, Stephen, for your answer. I think
So there's one.
Yeah, please.
Sorry, there's one more very quick question. How would we describe tunes and beats of the song in written form? A very good question. I'm not a musicologist. I had always believed that some of these songs would not appear so good using the Western musical notation, but the musicologists that I've worked with do use the Western musical notation. I'd have to talk with you about that in more detail later. Any kind of notation, whether it be musical notation or whether it be writing for writing spoken language, can never tell you as much as the sound does. No matter how complex it is. And so that is a good question. And certainly the rhythm you could use, I think, relatively, at least for something like that rice pounding song, the rhythm you could use the Western musical notation relatively straightforwardly. But I'm not sure even rhythm works very well in all cases. So, but yes, that's really a question for musicologists, and we need to work with musicologists. I didn't even touch on the question of notating the music. I was only talking about translating the meaning, the words. Another question. Anyway, I better stop there. We'll make that the last. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, MS Awan, for the question, because Awan used to sing. That's why, okay, he was asking a question relating to songs and rhythm. So anyway, I think so. Only one more question. We can have only one question. Anybody have one question? That will be the last question for the Professor Stephen Murray, because he is having
I have to
more
go to my
assignment
music
here.
rehearsal. Yes.
Please, anybody has question, comments?
Well, you all know how to find me if you want to ask questions later. I just will
Nisha has a
again
question,
mention. Oh, yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
Manal. Okay.
Yeah,
Nisha.
Good evening, sir. Sir,
Yeah.
actually, the question is not related to the music, but it's related to numerals.
Ah,
Since
yes.
since you have mentioned that in Thai Iton language they use the Lone Pali ordinal numbers. Yes, sir. When I visited in Iton village, I also find the same. But the thing that is confusing is I also find that Tilung, Tisong, they also use like this, sir.
Yeah. So look, I'm glad you raised that question because, and if I may take 2 minutes, because I'm sorry I can't attend your talk and would like to have. So in standard Bangkok Thai, that's the way you form ordinals, Ti Nung, Ti Song, Ti Sam, the one of number one, the one of two, the one of three, or place one, place two, place three, literally, or which one, which two, which three, depending on how you define this T. And I think this might be increasing in use as people become aware of standard Thai. So I don't know, this is a speculation because I don't remember feeling convinced that we're doing that. But remember, it's a generation now since I was studying the Aiton language, and language does change. The other thing that I would mention in connection with numbers, numerals, and Thai communities, well, two other things. Firstly, the birth order names, first son, second son, third son, first daughter, second daughter, third daughter. So I, ni, Sam, 1, 2, 3 for the sons, and ye, I, for the daughters, 1, 2, 3. So they are a counting system, and some of those are similar to numerals, and some of those are similar to forms that are numerals in other Thai languages. And the second thing I'd mention is their traditional dating system, the Lakni system that the Ahoms also use, this 60-day cycle, because that's also a counting system. And those are some of the things I would have talked about if I'd had a chance to hear your talk, and I wish you good luck for it. But I'd best move on. There is a question from George Swantuk about scripts. How important is it for languages to have scripts? A very big question. Nowhere near enough time to answer it right now. Most people seem to want to have their languages written, but again, that's a matter for another talk. So I think I should, because we've already run a little late, we should let the next speaker speak.
Yeah, thank you, Professor Stephen Moray, for your wonderful and insightful talk. And we'll meet more. I think so. You have a busy schedule today. You will be leaving soon. That's all right. We'll go to now next speaker. Our next speaker is Dr. Kaitlabo Daimai. And Kaitlabo Daimai is working there in the Center for Studies in Language, Literature and Culture, Utkal University of Odisha. And he will be speaking on a preliminary phonology of Liang Mai. Yeah, please, Daimai, over to you.
Okay. Hello, am I audible, sir?
Yes, Daimai, yes. Yeah.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Okay, right. Okay, good afternoon to everyone. I'll be talking on the preliminary phonology of Liang Mai. This is, I should say, like it will be more of a kind of discussion, as in, there are some cases where, I am not very certain where, we did more discussions and deliberation. So I will be very grateful if we can come up with feedbacks and and questions and all those things. Okay, so to begin with, Liang Mai, as many of you have must have known by now, spoken in Nagaland and Manipur. Now, Grayson say about this language that their language appears to be an intermediate one between the Naga-Bodo and the Naga-Kuki group. The pronouns agree best with the letter, and so I class it here, though its geographical position would incline one to put it with the former set of languages. So, Grayson has put the language in Naga-Kuki group, but then here he have not done any descriptive work on the language. Now, some vocabularies or some words, list of words are found in Grayson volume 3, part 2, page number 480 onwards, provided by McCullough. There it is listed under the name Quereng or Liang. And now this you have to distinguish this Quereng with the Quereng of the Kuki group. Now I'm still cannot come to any kind of conclusion or understanding that how this Grayson has put this Quereng and Liang together. I mean, how they are related, but that is a different story. But yeah, so now, okay, the next slide. Now, in the classification of TV languages, Morrison has put Liang Mai in type B3 group, Bradley in Jalengrong group of Southern Naga, Burling 2003 JMA group, and this JMA group is referred to as Western Naga in Force and Burling 2017. Now, in all these groups is the language Liangmai is classed together with Jmai and Rongmai in all these groups that is given above. Now we can see like there's a close this Jmai, Rongmai, and Liangmai historically or ethnically and linguistically they are very close, and this can be seen even in the classification of these languages. They also share a lot of cultural practices and traditions. Now, the main aim of this paper is to provide some comprehensive phonological description with main focus on segmental phonology, which I believe will set a groundwork for future research in the language. Now, previously, the language has been described by these following scholars. Marison, as mentioned, Marison did not do any work on the language. There's a language group known as Kacha, Impyo. There, the language specimen is Jmai. So, Liangmai was missed out in LSI. Now, in Marison 1967, he did some work on Liangmai. Now, he have mention of 23 consonants, of which 16 can be pre-nasalized in the initial position, 5 vowels, and 6 diphthongs. Tone was not mentioned in his work, and he also mentioned of the glottalized final series. Now, his source of data was from a book written by one N. Lunkingbo, a junior textbook of Liangmai Naga Hindi translation and composition, 1957, and Meringkilat Salibo English translation in Liang Naga, 1959. So those are the primary source of data for Marison. And another work done on language is by Moita, 2007. This is not a published work. It is a project under NEILS. But this is worth mentioning because it is the first work done on Liangmai based on modern linguistic theory by a native speaker. So in this work, Moita has a mention of 21 consonants, 8 vowels, 10 diphthongs, and 3 levels of tone: level, falling, and rising. And more recent, Cherenga has mentioned in his work of 21 consonants, 6 vowels, and 3 lexical tones, and 8 diphthongs. And I have also, did a brief study in 2020, and this work, my aim is to throw more light on that through this work. Okay, the next slide, please. Okay, overview of vowel phonemes. Now we have 6 monophthongs vowels, as we can see in the diagram there in the table. And I have provided a minimal set for these 6 vowels: P, give, pay, pluck, pa, to carry, particularly on shoulder, pa, third person marker as in palu is fill, o, gray, this is more of a variant spoken in Tamenglong area, or the area of my research, which is in the Tamenglong area, language spoken in Tamenglong area, and then u, busy. So this minimal set of these 6 vowels that is given in the diagram. Now there is some contest regarding the status of schwa there's a suggestion that I have been suggested that it may be a reduced R, based on the fact that it occurs only as a prefix and does not occur in open syllable. So there is this suggestion that this swa might be a reduced form of R. But I also found that there are words where swa occurs in initial position, not as a prefix, but as root. And, the list goes quite long, those kind of words where swa is in initial position. And so for that reason, I'm putting this as a vowel phoneme for now in this analysis. So we can talk more on this later. Okay, so yeah, as I have mentioned, all these vowels, they occur in middle and final position. Only swa occur in word initial position. Other vowels do not occur in initial position. Okay, so diphthongs other. I have not provided more examples because I thought like if I keep giving examples, list of word, there will be time constraint. So I have not provided all examples for all the vowels except for the minimal set that was provided. Now we see we have more diphthongs in Liang Mai than monophthongs, and even in the previous, we see in the previous section that the works that were done in Liang Mai, they have a mention of a good number of diphthongs in the language. Now I have also found 8 diphthongs in my data elicitation. This K, Tai, Koi, Quý, Kiu, Kau, Wa, Ya. So these are the minimal pairs of the diphthongs that I have that I found in my data elicitation. So there are some suggestions that they can whether we have to think of economy when it comes to a number of phonemes to reduce this diphthong with semivowels or something like that. So I am yet to look more into it, but for now I'm presenting this as a diphthong for this. Now, these diphthongs, the 8 diphthongs that I have presented, can be categorized into 4 parts, 4 types. Now, the first one is diphthongs converging on a high front vowel. That is, we are converging towards E. We have A, E, R, E, O, E, U, E. And we have diphthongs diverging from high front vowel, U, E, U, and ER. Diphthongs converging to low central vowel, U, R, and diphthongs diverging from a low central vowel, R, O. So these are 4 different types of diphthongs in the language. Okay, now the next slide, please. Yeah. In this present analysis, I have found an example of triphthong, which is E-R-O. I have given some examples here. This triphthong it's not mentioned by any scholars earlier, and even I have missed out in my previous analysis. But now I just want to I'm presenting this as a triphthong. Now again, like the question of economy comes, but looking at the example, and we can see how these sounds work. Now we have a kiao, we have madiao, and makiao, and a liao. So these are some examples of triphthong that I have found. Okay, next we'll move on to the consonant phonemes. The consonant inventory comprises of 21 phonemes. We have voiceless aspirated stops, pa, tha, ka. There are 6 unaspirated stops, pa, ta, ka, da, ga, and glottal stops. And we have voice aspirated stops, ba, da, ga, alveolar affricate, cha, fricatives, sa, ja, ha, approximant, va, ya, literal, la, and trill, ra. Now, all these consonants, except for glottal stop, can occur in onset position. And all these consonants, except for the approximant, occur in intervocalic position. And now in coda position, we have this following consonants that can occur in coda position: pa, ta, ka, ma, na, nga, and a glottal stop. Now, minimal sets and other things I have not mentioned in this presentation. Now we'll move on to syllable structure. The syllable consists of a vowel, peak, or nucleus, which generally occurs with an onset or a coda. The occurrence of onset consonant is not restricted, as in all those consonants can occur in onset position, except for glottal. While for the coda, we have seen the least. We have seen phonemes that can occur in coda position. Now, the canonical syllable structure observed in Liang Mai lexical items may be schematized as follows. We have a consonant, vowel, consonant 1, vowel, and consonant 2. Now, in the next slide, we can see some examples of this syllable. A syllable may consist of a single vowel phoneme. We have one single example of a monophthong being a word giving a meaning, that is E, which is I, and then we have a gi, coral. So we have swa here as a syllable. Now, a syllable may also consist of a consonant and a vowel, CV, in which C is the initial opening segment of a syllable, which consists of a single consonant. And we have CV syllable. Example is given. Excuse me. And then a syllable may also consist of consonant, vowel, and another consonant, that is C1, V, and C2. Now, there's no VC pattern in Liang Mai, in Liang Mai syllable. No, I have not come across any VC pattern. Now, all these patterns combine to form disyllable, polysyllable words in Liang Mai.
Gaimai, sorry to interrupt you. You have only 7 minutes.
Okay.
You have only 7 minutes.
Okay, consonant clusters. Clusters are not common, and it is found only in onomatopoeic words, and these words are often used to represent vivid impression of certain sensations or sensory perceptions like sound, movement, shape, or action, etc. Now, the clusters occur in this in the language are pa and ka as a first member and liquids ra and la as second member respectively. We see the example here. Now, even in the example, we see that in the reduplicated form, the cluster is reduced. Only in the first one, there we can see the cluster. Okay, now pre-nasalization. Nasalization of initial sounds, especially in formal speech, is common. And then all stops except the glottal can be pre-nasalized when occurring in word initial position. But however, like in informal situation or in colloquial, we usually see this pre-nasalization being dropped. And another thing is like this nasalization may have something to do with variation as well. The variety that is spoken in Tamenglong area, the place where I conducted my research, pre-nasalized sound are more rare than compared to the Tamil side. And it is observed both in high and low tone. And even Mauritian also has mentioned about pre-nasalized sound in Liang Mai. And the closely related languages like Rong Mai and Jay Mai have this pre-nasalized sound, which is mentioned in Pautang, in Ragui, and even in Mauritian. Okay, in tone, we have 3 registered tone: high, mid, and low. And there's no phonic contour tone. And for your reference, you can see in the screen, we have this high, mid, and low tone. The difference. The first one is gi, ju, gi, kil, gi, skin. Sang, thousand, sang, dry, sang, die. So that all these examples, they have this high, mid, and low. And more, in fact, we need to look more into the tone of this language as well. But for this analysis, I'm just only presenting the the contrast between high, mid, and low. And yeah, this is all for my presentation now. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Kalabudayamai, for your insightful and wonderful presentation. Now I'll invite the next speaker. Okay, after the next speaker, we will discuss, right? All two papers will be open for discussion, okay? Our next speaker is Anmesha Datta, Department of Linguistics, Assam University, Silchar, and she will be speaking on numerals in Thai Aiton language. Please, Anmesha, over to you.
Thank you so much, sir. Myself, Unmesha Datta, and today I'll be discussing about the numerals in Thai Aiton language. It is an endangered language of Northeast India, belongs to the Thai community.
Please share your slide.
Yes, yes.
Please share. Okay, yeah. Please carry on. Slide from me.
Yeah. Is it okay, sir? No.
It's okay. It's okay.
Yes.
So Thai Iton is one of the endangered language of Northeast India, especially of Assam. So today I'll be discussing the numeral system in Thai Iton language. Numeral system is one of the integral part of a language. It should be discussed from the point of view of its morphosyntactic construction. The numeral system of a language can be either decimal type, which means it takes number 10 as their building block, or it can be vesicimal type, which means it takes number 20 as the building block. In Iton or Itonia or Shamdonia, they use both decimal or visimal system for their numeral system. The Thai Iton speaking people live in 8 villages of Assam, namely Duburani, Tengani, Borhola of Golaghat district, and Ahomoni, Borgaon, Sokihula, Kolioni, and Balipothar of Karbi Anglong district. The language belongs to the Thai Karai group of Sino-Tibetan language family. The language also has its own script, which is called Lik Thai. So these are some of the literature review that I have gone through before going to the study. So in his book, Stephen Moray also discuss in his book, The Thai Languages of Assam, A Grammar and Texts. So Stephen Moray also discussed about the Thai Iton language and also something about the numerals of Thai Iton language. In his book also we get the basic numerals of the Iton and the ordinal numerals of the Thai Iton. Then again in Gogoi Nomami, in Nomami Gogoi's book, Thai Iton Ohomia Ingrazi Hobdokuh, which is a dictionary of Thai Iton vocabularies, where she also presented the numerals or basic numerals of Thai Iton. Before jumping into the numerals in Thai Iton, I would like to discuss something about the typological overview of the language. So Thai Iton, like any other Tibeto-Burman language, like most of the Tibeto-Burman language actually, is a tonal language. So like many other Tibeto-Burman language, Thai Iton also lacks the voice aspirated stops. Thai Iton is basically a SVO language, but nowadays we also find SOB pattern in the language, which may be because of the frequent contact with the Assamese people, because the place where they live is surrounded by the Assamese people only. So these are the maps where the Thai Iton people now live. The first map shows Golaghat district, and the map 2 shows Karbi Anglong district of Assam. So numerals in Thai Iton. Numeral system in Thai Iton is mainly of decimal type, which means they take number 10 as their building block. However, the vesicimal system is also found in the language from numerals 20 to 29, where they take number 20 as their building block. Then again, compounding is also a productive morphological process for the language to form higher numerals. The numerals of Thai Iton language can be categorized into 7 major types as cardinal numbers, ordinal numbers, fractional numbers, multiplicative numbers, distributive numbers, restrictive numbers, and approximate numbers. The cardinal numbers are the natural numbers that are used to count something. In the Thai Iton language, the cardinal numbers can be classified into two types, the basic numbers and the compound numbers. The basic numbers of Thai Iton are those numbers which are non-derived numbers. In Thai Iton, the basic numerals from 0 to 9 and then 10, 1000, 10,000, all are the non-derived numbers. So the numbers from 9 to 10 are monosyllabic. They do not take any affixes. So in the example, we can see son 0, lung 1, song 2, sam 3, si 4, ha 5, hook 6, sit, 7, pet, 8, cow, 9, hing, 1000, and moon, 10,000. On the other hand, numerals like 10 and 100, they take lung suffix at the end. For example, siplung. Here, uh, siplung, which stands for 10, then it should be paklung, but there is a mistake. It was soklung here, then paklung, which stands for 100. But one interesting fact which is seen nowadays, that the Tibetan people now use siplung as sip instead of siplung, which may be a cause of back formation, where a language uh, tend to delete the suffix or something that erroneously looks like a suffix. So there, then comes the compound numerals in Thai-Iton. Compound numerals are the numerals which are combination of two or more numerals. So compound numerals in Thai-Iton can be divided into three categories: additive compound numerals, multiplicative cum additive compound numerals. The first one is additive compound numerals, where the numerals are formed by the summation of the basic numerals. Numerals from 11 to 19 and 21 to 29 are formed by this method. When you look at the example here, sip it, which stands for 11. Here sip is 10. Then it stands for 11, and together it makes sip it. Then again sip song, which where sip is 10, song stands for 2, and together it makes sip song. Then again, in the case of 21, it is sao it, where sao stands for 20 and it stands for 1, and together they becomes 21 and or sao it. Likewise, sao song, sao sam, sao si, and so on. So like most of the Tibeto-Burman language, Thai-Iton also shows very similar system in the formation of their numerals from 21 to 29. The multiplicative compounds, the decade numerals from 30 to 90, and the century numerals from 100 to 900, and the mega numerals from 1000 to 9000, all are multiplicative compound numerals of Thai-Iton language. These numerals are formed by the multiplication of the basic numbers, in the case of the decade number from 3 to 9, or in the case of century and mega numerals from 1 to 9, they are multiplied with the decade root sip, or the century root pak, or the mega root hing. So from this we can say that in the formation of higher numerals, Thai-Iton follows the decimal construction. So here are the Thai-Iton decade compounds. Here the first one is sum sip, where sum stands for 3 and sip stands for 10, and together their multiplication becomes 30. Then C sip 40, ha sip 50, hook sip 60, sit sip 70, pet sip 80, cow sip 90. Similarly, in the case of century compound, they take in this case of century compounds, the numerals are multiplied. The basic numerals from 1 to 9 are multiplied with the century root pak, where in the first one pak lung, that pak is 100 and lung is 1, and together they become pak lung. Then song pak, where song is 2 multiplied with pak, which is 100. Then sam pak 300, si pak 400, ha pak 500, hook pak 600, and so on. In the case of mega compound also, the basic numerals from 1 to 9 are multiplied with the mega root hing. So in the formation of mega compound, Hing Lung, Hing stands for 1000 and Lung is 1. So together they become 1000. Song Hing, 2 into 1000, 2000. Sam Hing, 3 into 1000, 3000. Then Si Hing, Ha Hing, Hook Hing, Sit Hing, Pet Hing, and Cow Hing. Then another process of compound formation in the numerals of Thai-Iton is multiplicative cum additive compound numerals. Multiplicative cum additive compound numerals are formed with the notion of multiplication of the first two numerals and then the summation of the last one. Numerals from 30 to 39, 41 to 49, 51 to 59, 61 to 69, 71 to 79, 81 to 89, 91 to 99, all are formed by the help of this method only. In the example, some sip it. Here, sum stands for 3, which is multiplied with sip, that is 10, and then it is a summation of 1. That means 30 plus 1 is 31. Then again, sum sip cow, where sum stands for 3, sip is 10, and cow stands for 9. So together they became 39. Again, si sip it, 41, si sip cow, 49, ha sip it, 51, ha sip cow, 59, and so on. Ordinal numbers in most of the Tibeto-Burman languages are derived from the cardinal numbers, and so as in Thai-Iton. So in Thai-Iton, but it is a bit confusing in Thai-Iton because although Thai-Iton have their own ordinal numbers, but nowadays they prefer to use the lone ordinal numbers that's taken from the Pali language. So the following chart shows, the first column shows the Thai-Iton ordinal numbers, and the second row shows the ordinal numbers that are derived from Pali, and the third row shows the glossary. So Tilung, where T is a prefix, is added to the basic numeral lung, and together they became Tilung, referring first. Then T song, T sam, T si, T ha, T hook, T sit, T pet, T cow, and T sim. But nowadays, the Thai-Iton people is mostly seen using the ordinal numbers that are derived from Pali language, which these are Pratama, Dutiya, Titiya, Satutha, Panchatha, Sastha, Atama, Navama, Dashama, and Satha. The fractional numbers. In Thai-Iton, the lexical item for half is the only basic fractional numeral that I have came across so far. The interesting fact found here is that the Thai-Iton people use different fractional term for different fractional term to describe half for different aspects, like day, for time, for things, etc. When we look at the example, for day, they use Wanglung and Tonglung, where Wanglung is 1 day and Tonglung is half day. Then for time, they use Sipnari, Sipnari Pai, where Sipnari stands for 10 o'clock and Sipnari Pai stands for 10:30 o'clock. Then again, for things, mostly for inanimate objects, they use Toklung or Toklung Pai, where Toklung is 1 or 1 kg and Toklung Pai is half.
Mesa, you have only 7 minutes.
Yeah.
Please.
Okay, sir. I can also have of the cardinal numbers, and they use a which you form from the cardinal numbers with the help of a genitive case marker fa. For example, Samphalung. Here, Sam stands for 1, Fa is the genitive case marker and lung is 1. Then together they became 1 by 3. Then si fa lung, where it should be C actually. Si fa lung, where C stands for 4, fa is the genitive case marker and lung is 1. Then ha fa sam, where ha stands for 5, then fa is the genitive case marker and sum is 3. So together they became 3 by 5. Then multiplicative numbers, the multiplicative numerals answer to the question how many times or how many folds. In Thai Iton, multiplicative numerals are formed by both prefixing and suffixing of the affix pan to the cardinal number, where panglung is once, songpang twice, sampan thrice, sipan 4 times, hapan 5 times, and the rest goes on. Distributive numerals in Thai Iton are formed by compounding the morpheme cow, which means person, with the corresponding cardinal numerals. So here cow lung, cow is the compounding morpheme or the prefix which is added to the cardinal numeral lung that stands for 1. So together they become 1 each. Then song cow 2 each, some cow 3 each, si cow 4 each, ha cow, hook cow, and the rest goes on. Then comes the restricted numerals. The restricted numerals in Thai Iton are formed by compounding the morphemes die meaning only and cow meaning person to the basic cardinal numerals. So cow lung die here, which stands for only 1. Then song cow die only 2, some cow die only 3, si cow die, ha cow die, hook cow die, sit cow die, pet cow die, then cow die, and sip cow die. The last one is the approximate numeral. Approximate numerals are the numerals that are close to the actual numerals, but not the authentic one. The approximate numerals in Thai Iton are formed by adding the suffix willendai and to die with the cardinal numerals. Willendai is used with inanimate objects and to die is used with the animate objects. And here willen and to refers to about, and die at their end refers to only. So as we can see in the example 1, ha willen die making hong. Here ha stands for 5, willen stands for about, die is only, and making hong is apple. Since apple is an inanimate object, thus they are using willen die for this one. So together they stands for about 5 apples. In the example 2, ha to die u. Here ha is 5, 2 is about, die is only, and u is cow. Since cow is an animate object, so they use to die, and together it is about 5 cows. So this was all for my discussion. So from the discussion I think we came across to the conclusion that Thai Iton, like most of the Tibeto-Burman language, is a language that mainly follows decimal type, but it also follows the decimal system from number 20 to 21. The basic numerals from 1 to 10 are all bound roots. The numerals like 30, 40, 50, 60, 70, 80, and 90 all are multiplicative compounds. The ordinal numbers in Iton are formed by affixation added with the cardinal numbers. But the surprising fact here is that the native speakers now prefer Pali loan ordinal numerals instead of their own. So the higher numerals beyond thousands are borrowed words mainly from English, as they use laklung for lak and koktelung for krorur. So these are maybe the loan words mostly from English and also from Hindi or Assamese. although some modifications have been made upon them. In the Thai Iton lexical items, in the Thai Iton lexical item, the fractional number, the basic fractional item half differs according to time, day, thing, which is a very interesting fact to find. So this is all for my presentation. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Minister, for your wonderful presentation. Now, board of paper are open for discussion. If you have any question, query, you can directly ask to the speaker, please. Anybody has questions?
Sir Dhiren, can I?
Yeah, please,
can
please,
I come
please,
in?
please, Vijayamba, Dr. Vijayamba,
Okay.
please.
Okay. Thank you, Kailat, so much for your interesting paper. But I have a few observations. Like you have mentioned about this triphthong. Triphthong. According to me, it's look like a vowel sequence. Yeah, we have to look into it, whether it is a triphthong or a vowel sequence. And another observation is, as you have mentioned, we don't have this VC syllabic pattern. Yeah, it's very less, but some people we use like E, first person pronoun. Some people use only I, some people use with the EH that people used to write. So I don't know whether we have to use it or we have to drop. That is another observation. And third one is we have this VV also. We have like that demonstrative we also. Yeah, we have, and then that IRA, that's all. When one person condemn himself, then the IRA, this also we have this VV pattern also. So thank you so much, Kailat, and sir.
Okay. Okay, thank you, Widini. Yeah, regarding triphthong, I cannot be very definite that this is triphthong or not, but based on the data that I have collected, this particular sound has been very interesting for me, and then trying to analyze it more and more. I mean, I came towards this. I'm drawn more towards saying that this can be a triphthong sound. So of course, yeah, we have to look more into it. And yeah, regarding VC, okay, yeah, regarding VC, the one you gave EH, that I don't know. I mean, if that is not a very commonly used. I mean, it's just a representation of representation in writing, in orthography, right? It's not. It has nothing to do with the sound, the font, when we talk about the sound, E high or something starting with the EH example that we have given, the sound will be only vowel. So the question of H being VC does not appear to me. And yeah, VV is there. I have treated VV as just one vowel. That's why I did not mention VV. Otherwise, I have although I have examples of VV, thinking that VV is a diphthong. I did not and treated as a single vowel. I did not mention about VV. Thank you.
Yeah, Thailabo.
Yeah.
Just listening to Dr. Vijayamba, I think so. Regarding this triphthong, there may be post-syllabic, boundary between the E and O. Maybe I'm not quite sure but
Okay.
I just okay. Looking into the data, what are you suggested there? Okay, just you check. There may be syllabic boundary between the E and O. If it is the case, if there is syllabic boundary between the E and O, then there may not be triphthong.
Okay.
So this is my suggestion.
Okay. Yeah, I'll look into it. Yeah.
So anybody has question? Please. Our two presenters are ready to answer you.
Dhiren, can I ask?
Yes.
Yeah, so thank you to both the presenters. Interesting presentations. I have questions for both. Maybe I'll start with Kalabo. With regard to your inventory, you have mentioned the previous works by Madison and then Moita and one other work. So in terms of the consonants, I think it is very similar across.
Yeah, right.
Yours. With the vowels, so Madison has 5, Moita has 8, and then yours as well as the other one has 6. So the difference in the number of vowels, what could be the is it the same variety of Liangmai, or is there a difference in the I don't know, method of analysis?
Marison, I don't know. Marison must have based his study on a written form that was mentioned earlier by Kingbo. I think that he did not personally go to field work and then not have this interaction, but I think his work is based on a written form. So he have mentioned yes 5 where swa was omitted in his consonant, and Amos, I think we speak the same variety, of course, Amos and Moita and me, but I'm not sure his the data that he has from where he have collected his data, that I'm not sure. But yes, I'm not saying that I'm not saying that his analysis may be wrong or something like that, but based on more, research, or based on my analysis, I should say, like we came to the conclusion that like we have these 6 vowels rather than the 8 vowels. I have Moita's work also. I have not mentioned it, or I cannot get it right now. What are the vowels that he have mentioned? In my full paper, I have mentioned about it, but right now I cannot. I don't know exactly what are the vowels that he have mentioned. But other than that, the more recent analysis have presented more of 6 vowels, and other research which even Wichamdin also has, and then others also have presented as 6 vowels. So yeah, that's what I have to say right now, as of now.
So yeah, thank you, because it's very important when we work on something. Our research cannot be in isolation. So since you have mentioned the previous work, there has to be some reference.
I would.
Even in the description. So yeah.
I will look more into this Moita's work, and then maybe I will get in touch with him as well, and then have discussion about the vowels again.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
I also have a question for Unmesha. Dhiren, can I?
Yes, Tamsu. Yeah.
So Unmesha, thank you for the presentation. I just had I don't know, maybe a comment, and maybe based on that, if you can answer. But two things actually. I think it's important to gloss each example, because sometimes it's difficult to follow. So when you're talking about the fractions, for instance, it's difficult to see whether, without the one-to-one glossing of the words, it becomes difficult to follow. The other is with regard to the uh, explanation. It's always good to explain why certain patterns are different. Uh, that to just go through the entire data. So one very interesting thing that I saw, and which I think no explanation was given. So if you look at your multiplicative, century multiplicative, I think, and then distributive, and then even with I think uh, some other fraction or but yeah, the thing was that with one, there's always a reversal in the order. So in the century multiplicative, you have 1 into 100. But for all the others, you have 100 into 2, 100 into 3, and so on. Same thing with the distributive. So when I look at the data, the first thing that comes is why is it for one? Why is it that you have this difference in the order? So I think as researchers, we need to try and explain or give something to show these differences. So there was one query that I had. Why is there a reversal of ordering with the numeral 1 in the multiplicative, both century as well as I think distributive? And my second question was, well, you said your words 1 to 10 and then 100, I think they were basic, whereas words like 20, 30, 40 were not basic. So just some clarity on that. I think basic you meant underived.
Yes, sir.
So because I saw that the word 20, 30, 40, those looked to me like underived. So 20 is like Sao. Then you have Sao Leng, 21. So in that case, 20 would be underived. It would be basic. But I think somewhere you have said that it's not or something like that. Anyway, yeah, if you can clarify on those two.
Yes, sir. Um,
Yes, and Miss, you can share your, slide
okay, sir.
that Tamsu was asking about the issues. You can share the slide and you can try to answer it.
Yeah, if you can go to century multiplicative or distributive, one of the slides, anyone.
Yes, sir. So I
Yeah,
think
here.
you are talking about this one.
Yes.
Yes, sir. Actually, there is right now I do not have any explanation for this why they use it in a reverse pattern, but we can say it's a uniqueness of the language that they use the first one as in a reverse pattern. Sir, because when we look in other, like in additive compound also, the it is used in it here stands for 1, but when we look at the cardinal numbers, the 1 is lung. So if we follow that pattern, so it should be like siplung, but it is not like that. So I think I need a little more, I need to go a little more deeper to grab these things out. So I'm still working on it, sir.
Yeah, so that's my point, that we need to be looking at these, these patterns, and as researchers, our objective should be to try and explain these patterns. Even your preference for the Pali ordinal. Again, you may not have one may not have a linguistic explanation, but maybe from the social perspective, right? So, I mean, my only comment is this: that these patterns, these things, we need to find answers to. You know, just showing the data may not be should not be the sole objective. But yeah, we should try to explain these patterns.
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yes, and Mr. you can note it, okay, what the Dr. Temsu was mentioning, those issues like, this pan or pak, then, the ordinal numerals like this, what to say, the Pali. Some of the ordinal numerals are borrowed from Pali. Why it is? Yeah, it's a very good question. And because they have their own or indigenous, ordinal numbers, though they do not use it, but they're using the Pali borrowings. Why it is happening? So it is a very good question. And just listening to Dr. Temsu, Daimai.
Yes, sir.
So actually, you should give what are the vowels. We're talking about, this Charenga 2017 also established 7 vowels. What are the vowels? 7 vowels. Then, Moita, 8 vowels. What are the vowels? We have to show the, vowels. Then the thing will be very clear. So the audience can understand, okay, what are the differences? What are the variation of vowels, okay, in Dangmai? So it is maybe because of dialectal variation, or this maybe, what to say, in the part of analysis, different, say, philosophical insights into the part of analysis. This may be, but you have to show the vowels. That's all.
Yes,
and
sir.
one more just clarification. I just want to post you that, okay, this the swa. The occurrence of swa, swa occurs in all 3 positions or no? Initially, middle, or finally? But I wanted to know. Because you have established this swa as phoneme. Though we have to look the occurrence of swa.
Okay. Yeah, it occurs in initial position.
Okay.
It occurs in intervocalic position across syllable as a prefix, but not in final position.
Not in final position. Yeah, that is the matter. Yeah, because it cannot be occur in final position. So we have to look into the matter very carefully. This is one. And second thing I want to post is that glottal stop. So you have established glottal stop as phoneme.
Yes, sir. I did, sir.
Phoneme. So this is you have to re-examine very carefully, because the position of glottal stop in Tibetan languages is very obscure.
Okay.
Because there is controversy. Some people, they are saying that this is not the phoneme, and some people, very rare people, were talking about the glottal stop as a phoneme, but they cannot prove what they claim. They don't have the linguistic evidences that they claim that this glottal stop is a phoneme. So that's why, this is my humble suggestion, and you can re-examine and you can check it very carefully whether this glottal stop is a phoneme or not.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
Yeah. Then this.
Sir, I also.
Yeah, please, Manali.
Okay. Please. I just wanted to, what Timsu has observed, I was also observing the same thing in the morning as well as in the afternoon. Like, I could see this spatial orientation when it comes to the numeral 1. In Tangam, in the ordinal numeral, they had the nyap occurring initially, and then when it is about second, third, and fourth, the nap, it is in the fuller form as nape, and it is suffixed. So again, here in Aitun also, it is occurring when it is about the 1, the numeral 1, then it comes first, and when it comes initially, and when it comes to 2, 3, 4, then in terms of counting in multiplicatively, it is coming afterwards. So I think there's some kind of spatial orientation happening. It could be a socio typological feature. And I think it is also there in Khasi, this kind of order, a change in the order of this morpheme for the numeral 1. So I think Unmesha also has to look at this, socio and also typological feature characteristics in those languages.
Yeah, just listening to Monali, what my suggestion is that, this Iton language, follows SBO pattern, right? But because of the context of the SOB languages, now we may find, SOB pattern. So that may be one of the, vision because of, this reversing the pattern of, what order. Say earlier, okay, they had, this SBO. Now they are now little bit, now they're becoming SOV. We have to look into the matter. That may be some of the reason of that, reversing the, order. Say this is okay, pun follows sometimes and sometimes pun precedes. And this is one thing. Generally, some of the Tibetan languages, they have very unique features. Because this one, right? See in Manipuri, or in some other language like this Kharam, okay, they have the first, original first, they have the suppletive word. There is distinct word for that. But from the second, third, fourth, fifth, is a derived one. That is the first one is the basic one. Then from second, third, fourth, this is the derived from the other cardinal numbers. So this is a very good, and interesting, issues in Tibetan languages. So that's why people, are very much, attracted. People are very much attracted to work on Tibetan languages. So Amesha should work into the issues very carefully, and I think so in the next time she should have the explanation for it. Thank you, Monali, and thank you, Dr. Tamsu, for the question and for wonderful discussion. And anyway, we have some time. We have another 5 minutes or what? Should we finish? Okay, now it's 3. So if the audience allow, so we may have another 5 minutes for discussion. Yeah, if anybody has, question, comments, 1 or 2.
Yeah, Dhiren, since you're giving time, just to continue with Calebo's Shua. See, again, looking at the data, you will see that the Shua occurring in the initial in disyllabic word in the first syllable. Now, that is very similar to the sesquisyllabic structures that we see in Tibeto-Burman.
Yes.
So, and sesquisyllabic, we all know that it's a weak vowel, it's a reduced vowel. So again, Calebo can look at those structures again.
Exactly.
Looking at your examples, I'm sure you have others as well. Those are sesquisyllabic syllables, and you also don't have tone on those syllables.
Exactly. Is the unreduced, very reduced, very short.
Yes. So you can look at that again.
Exactly. So anybody has question, suggestion, comments? So if not, I should thank both the speakers. Okay, na? Our audience. Okay, so thus I'm thankful to the 2 speakers of this wonderful session, Dr. Kailabo Daimai and Mr. Datta, and our panel speaker, Professor Stephen Murray. Actually, he has some engagement, so he just left the meeting. So I just thanked everyone. Manali, just now I have closed the session and I over to you for the next program. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you, Dhiren sir, for chairing the session very smoothly and for carrying the discussions um, um, uh, till 3-4 p.m. and for giving the extra time for discussion. And also I'd like to thank once again to all the participants who have engaged in the discussion as well, because it's very important to have discussion after every presentation. And once again, thank you to the plenary speaker, Dr. Stephen Murray. I wish he was here till the last presentation, but then because of his other engagements, he's unavailable. And thank you to Dr. Keladbo and Unmesha for your wonderful presentations on the phonology of Liang Mai and the numerals in Thai Aiton. Thank you to participants also for listening to the session patiently throughout. And I would like to announce that we will be starting the evening session from 6 p.m. And it will be on the sir, the name of the session I am not able to recollect now. Language documentation, right? Language documentation and some grammatical aspects of the Naga languages.
Some grammatical aspects, yeah.
Yeah, it's a very long name. So this session will be chaired by Dr. T. Temsu Sang, and we hope to see you in the evening session as well. Thank you.
Thank you everyone. Thank you.